when Kunti is finally thinking, I'll be with my sons and my sons will settle down for good. And that's the nature of the world, that when we think everything is going to be okay, it's something that we did not expect might happen. And in that moment of like tremendous confusion and tension, Krishna protects all of them. So that leads to so much of a relief. So then immediately, what comes to the forefront of Kunti Devi's consciousness is the greatness of Krishna, because she has just observed that how Krishna protected Parikshit and all the Pandavas. So that greatness of Krishna is very much in the forefront of her consciousness. Otherwise, she is usually in the maternal consciousness, that she is in Vatsalya Bhava usually. But because of these immediate circumstances, she is overwhelmed and she is becoming very much aware of the greatness of Krishna. And that's the we'll first see 17th verse, which is not technically part of the prayer. From 18th verse, the prayer begins. And this is the section, Heartfelt Prayers is a section that we already had an overview last week, a kind of a short one. So today we will start with verse 17 of this section. The theme is generally this question like, knowledge about God, a lot of people have. But do all those people who have knowledge about God have faith? And even if we all have some faith, do we have trust? So that's the kind of theme that is explored here in this particular verse 17. The saved from the radiation of the Brahmas, the chaste devotee of the Lord, and her 5 sons and Draupadi addressed Lord Krishna as he started from home. So we're going to discuss Prabhupada's purport. Let's read it first and then have more elaborate on that. He is translation and Kunti is described herein as Sati or chaste, due to her unalloyed devotion to Lord Sri Krishna. Her mind will now be expressed in the following prayers for Lord Krishna. A chaste devotee of the Lord does not look to others, namely any other living being or demigod, even for deliverance from danger. That was all along the characteristics of the whole family of the Pandavas. They knew nothing except Krishna, and therefore the Lord was also always ready to help them in all respects and in all circumstances. That is the transcendental nature of the Lord. He reciprocates the dependence of the devotee. One should not therefore look for help from imperfect living beings or demigods, but one should look for all help from Lord Krishna, who is competent to save his devotees. Such a chaste devotee also never asks the Lord for help, but the Lord, out of his own accord, is always anxious to render it. So here we see that Krishna did save Parikshit and all the Pandavas and behaved as if nothing big has happened. He is business as usual. And now that that's all done, he immediately wants to continue because he was almost ready on his way to leave to Dwarka. So he indicates to Dwarka his charioteer, and Daruka is like taking his reins and getting ready to leave. And Kunti and the other Pandavas and Draupadi, they're all like surprised. And you can imagine that he has just saved them from the greatest danger. And so in that's why they all come around Krishna and they want to beg to postpone his departure. Such a huge thing as just they are just still recovering from it. So here we see that Kunti Maharani and all of them have experienced the omnipotence or the greatness of God. And whenever people come across the greatness of the Supreme Lord, not all of them have the same effect. So we could see that when Duryodhana came across the greatness of Krishna in the form of the Pandavas being saved again from all the dangers that was posed by Duryodhana, or specifically when Krishna showed the universal form. So that greatness or the omnipotence of Krishna, when Duryodhana experienced it because of his arrogance, he became further envious and proud. Because he was proud, he became really envious. And he refused to acknowledge Krishna's supremacy. He became even more hostile and competitive and eventually became self-destructive. So this can be one reaction, that Duryodhan, because of his pride, he became completely envious and became more and more arrogant. And I did not include Dhritarashtra, was an insecure person also. like Ashwat, I included him because he is involved in this chapter. But Dhritarashtra is also a very, he's an insecure person, or he is a person with inferiority complex. Duryodhana is someone with a superiority complex. Dhritarashtra is the exact opposite side of the coin. He was, his life was defined by his inferiority complex, that I am blind, that I could not get the kingdom. So he wanted to somehow or other twist things and people and situations for his sons to have the what he could not have. So his inferiority complex dictated his life. For Duryodhana, his superiority complex or pride that dictated his life. So we see Dhritarashtra, because of his inferiority complex, he comes in touch with greatness of Krishna. What he does is, at some moments he accepts, oh, God is great, but because he was so self-absorbed, he just says everything is anyway up to the destiny. I don't have any power. It's all Krishna's will, it's all destiny's will. Anyway, these things have to happen, so let them happen. So he does not take responsibility. Here it becomes arrogance in the case of Duryodhana. In this, it becomes irresponsibility and avoidance, running away from the reality. For Ashwatthama, he was also proud. However, his disposition was very insecure, because he never could satisfy his father like Arjuna could satisfy. He could never become the greatest warrior like Arjuna or anybody like that. So he always had this insecurity, and he was also proud. He always thought, why my father is not recognizing? Why is the world not recognizing me? I'm also equally or more competent than Arjuna. So this was his disposition. And so the response when he came before Krishna's greatness was just fear. He just ran away when he saw this. His Brahmastra is being countered by the Brahmastra of Arjuna or the Sudarshan Chakra. It's just fear. He was just overwhelmed, and because of that fear, he reacted further violently and tried to regain control through destruction. Whereas in the in the case of Kunti and Uttara, they also experienced the greatness of Krishna, the omnipotence and the omnipresence of Krishna. And it was very simple. Because they were humble, they were grateful, and they were faithful, they immediately took surrender of Krishna. And Kunti acknowledges her dependence, praises Krishna's greatness, and desires his shelter further in the whole prayers of Kunti. And in the case of Uttara, immediately she turns to Krishna with full trust that Krishna can save me. So accepts her powerlessness and takes refuge in him. So what Nana makes knowledge into faith is the humility of the devotee, that God is great and I am insignificant, and that does not scare them away. So proud people, they cannot happily accept their smallness, which is reality. So even if we meet somebody else who is greater than us, if we start finding faults in them, so that we can feel secure that I'm not so small. It's not. So the moment we come across someone greater, this is also a tendency that people tend to find faults in great people, so that they can feel comfortable in their own skin. It is their insecurity that they impose on others, so that they can actually feel comfortable. Otherwise, their general wheel of judgment about themselves, that, oh, I'm such a nice person or a great person or a very rich person or a talented person or whatever. Sorry. That cannot be, that gets shattered when they come in front of a very great person or a person even slightly better than them or even equal to them. So then immediately it turns into insecurity, and we start doing either out of fear or out of arrogance or out of insecurity, we try to do things which can further make us feel secure. However, a devotee, in the face of danger, knowing Krishna's greatness and having humility, feels sheltered, is not disturbed. And this is what turns knowledge into faith. One's humility. Krishna also says, Aham. So he says that I am everything, everything comes from me. But one who understands this, one who really understands this, one who is intelligent, actually, Buddha, so that person actually engages in devotional service. One who really understands this, Matwa, they worship me because they are humble. And that is why they are not scared by the greatness of God or omnipresence of God. Of course, this theme will be further discussed in these next three verses, the initial three prayers of Kunarani. And Prabhupada also writes about it. And when does faith turn into trust? We all have faith. However, our faith may turn into different levels of trust. We're all devotees trying to practice. We all have different levels of faith and we all have different levels of trust. And that is also the sign of our surrender, because the helplessness that we all have to face in life, in the course of life, can actually be very scary. Like how all the Pandavas and Kuntara, they all have to suddenly face this danger. And it reveals how delicate our life is in this world. Anything can change any moment. So our life is extremely delicate, and we are helpless all the time. However, there are moments which makes us realize how helpless we are. When the reality really hits home and we realize how helpless we are, then that's a time of test actually, because a devotee who has trust in Krishna is happy to feel the helplessness in the presence of Krishna in the course of life, like Kunti. So that is why, and Prabhupada also will speak further. That he says sometimes the Lord puts his pure devotees in such dangers because in that condition of helplessness, the devotee becomes more attached to the Lord. Through that helplessness, they become more attached to the Lord. And that is why here it is humility means to know that I'm small and God is great. And there is one place where Prabhupada gives a definition of humility to Harivilas Prabhu. He says humility means that you're convinced beyond any doubt that there is nothing in this world, so not our money or anything that we have, not our education, not our gun or not our fame or anything, will be able to save us except the mercy of Krishna. So then Prabhupada tells him, like, when you are convinced like this, that except Krishna, no one can actually save me. These things are all instruments, but ultimately it is the mercy of Krishna that can actually protect me. When this conviction is 100, to the extent this conviction is there, to that extent you are humble. Because he asked, how do I know what is the definition of humility? So Prabhupada said, to the extent you are convinced that only Krishna's mercy can protect you, and everything else is just an instrument of Krishna's mercy. But ultimately, it's all Krishna's mercy that can protect us. Then we are actually humble. So this quality of dependence on Krishna's mercy is a major indicator of one's purity of bhakti also. That is why here Prabhupada uses the word sati in a very interesting way. Sati is usually someone who is chaste. And traditionally, if you call a lady as sati, that means she was chaste to her husband. That is the general meaning usually taken. You can go to any Sanskrit scholar. They will say sati here means she was very chaste to her husband. However, our acharyas are taking a completely very different stance. It's not that she was not chaste to her husband, that was a given. But how Prabhupada defines chaste is due to her unalloyed devotion to Lord Sri Krishna. Why it is unalloyed? Because she did not turn to anything else. She had complete faith and trust that only Krishna can protect me. And we also see in the case of Uttara, she runs past all the Pandavas to Krishna. She does not stop before anybody. She just runs past all of them. And it's very like Arjuna is there, her father in law, Bhima is there. Still, she just passes by. And also, we see in the 13th verse of this chapter, Swami called the Pandavas Ananya. That means they were utterly dependent on the mercy of Krishna. And finally, here in the 17th verse, we can see Kunti is being called as Sati, a chaste devotee of the Lord. Due to her unalloyed devotion to Krishna, she is termed as Sati according to Prabhupada. We can see how this kind of dependence on the mercy of Krishna and complete conviction that yes, only Krishna can protect me and nothing else. So then Prabhupada writes but further statements, a chaste devotee of the Lord does not look to others, namely any other living being or demigod, even for deliverance from danger. Reading this, I was thinking, oh, if somebody is in danger, will they not look for immediate help from others? So I don't think this verse is speaking about the immediate turning for help, the practical measures that one takes like like the Pandavas, they released Brahmastra, or Arjuna was trying to release Brahmastra, especially in the second case. He was not looking to Krishna or anything because it was a real danger and it was way late to act. So immediately they just started picking up their weapons. So in that place also we saw how that Prabhupada also wrote that just because they took up their weapons does not mean they were dependent on Krishna, not dependent on Krishna. So Krishna understands their heart. He understands the practicality. So without even them asking for protection, he actually arranged for it. So it's not always that we don't ask for help or we don't turn in terms of emergencies to address the practical. If someone fell and they hurt themselves, it's not that they're going to lie there thinking, okay, Krishna only has to come and help me. So they can reach out for immediate help. But ultimately, as Prahlad Maharaj says, it's not the doctor who ultimately saves the patient. It's not the parent who ultimately keeps up the maintenance of a child. Yes, without the doctor admitting medicines, it would be hard for a patient to survive. But we have experience in this world. Despite the best of the treatments, sometimes doctors can themselves kill patients by their mistake. Or despite all the good treatment, when the time comes, a person leaves the body. Or we see that despite minimal treatment, sometimes people just minimal or no treatment, people survive, and it's a miracle. And this guy who just walked away from this recent air crash in India, it's like completely unbelievable. Like the rest of everyone is complete, like their bodies were also not even in recoverable condition. And here is this guy just walked out with the minimal scratches or like minimal damage. So it's very inconceivable. So Prahlad Maharaj prays, it's you, the Lord, who actually protects anybody. And yes, the others are measures or means, the doctor, the parent, the medicines, they're all means of protection, but ultimately Krishna is the protection. And he also says that, Prabhupada writes here, he reciprocates the dependence of the devotee. They knew nothing except Krishna, and therefore the Lord was always ready to help them in all respects and in all circumstances. That is the transcendental nature of the Lord. So he reciprocated the level of dependence they had. One should, and again, Prabhupada is clarifying that the demigod concept, that we did not turn to other people for protection. We can just be dependent on Krishna, and he is competent to save his devotees. So such a chaste devotee also never asks the Lord for help. So in many situations, the devotee may not ask for help. Say here, Uttara asked for help. The Pandavas did not ask for help. The previous time, Arjuna actually turned to Krishna and said, hey, what is this effulgence? I'm not able to understand. What is this? Please help and may help me understand. So he turned to Krishna. Sometimes he did not turn to Krishna at some other times. That does not, the external turning alone is not being discussed here for sure. Otherwise, even Uttara would be disqualified if we just take this statement literally. However, in their heart of their hearts, they're always looking for help from Krishna. Sometimes they may not even externally ask. They may just think, whatever is the mercy of Lord, let that happen. Or they may endeavor in the heart, knowing that Krishna will anyway protect me, I'll do my best. So there are differences in in the approach, how it plays out in each one's life. But however, this trust that yes, this faith that Krishna will help me. And in that way, they are not anxious about it. So when faith comes into contact with humility, when knowledge comes into contact with humility, it turns into faith. And when faith further comes in contact with humility and dependence, it becomes trust. So only a faithful devotee, to the extent they are convinced that beyond any doubt that there is nothing in this world except Krishna's mercy, can protect them. To the extent one is convinced, to that extent one is humble, and to that extent the trust is better. So that is why just having knowledge about Krishna is not necessary, because so many people have knowledge about God, a generic knowledge at least, but it may not always result in faith of God. And just that faith alone may not always result in full trust. To the extent we are humble and convinced of Krishna's protection, to that extent our faith can turn into trust. So these are some of the thoughts. And this verse especially is like a prelude for the rest of the prayer, because it sets the tone, the mood of Rani, that as it establishes that beyond all doubt that fear cannot exist in a humble heart. So they are not fearful when they are turning to Krishna. It's not they are scared, so they are taking shelter of Krishna. It's not out of that fear that they are dependent on Krishna. It's just they are humble. They realize their smallness and they are not scared about it. Like Ashwatthama or Dusha, their smallness that does not scare them. Because they are humble, their smallness makes them even more grateful and dependent on Krishna, and their faith increases and their trust increases. So after this theme, the rest of the three verses we can start. If there is anything anyone wants to share related to this particular verse or discussion, please. Yes, Sundar, go Hare Krishna. Mother Gail.
Oh, hi. Let's go first. Okay, just to save time, I won't fight with you. Confirm that faith is just a weaker level of trust. I was just trying to make that distinction between faith and trust a little more clearer in my mind.
Means we are trying, because we are trying to differentiate a weaker faith and a stronger faith. So we are taking, we are using these terms faith and trust in this context. Faith as assuming that it's beginning level faith, and trust as deepened faith. But in another context, it could be different. Even Prabhupada says in one place, what is the difference between Shraddha and Prema? He says, Shraddha is appreciation, some level of appreciation, but Prema is full, complete appreciation of.
Yeah, so there's just different degrees of the
Yes.
same thing,
Yes.
basically.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. I just want to confirm. Thank you.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, Prabhu, I had a similar question because you had said, right, that you need humility for your knowledge to turn into faith. And then did you say later that you need humility again for that?
The further humility for that faith to turn into trust, become stronger faith.
So you need one humility to get to faith and then another humility to go to trust?
Because humility can have multiple facets, in the sense God is great, I am small. So many people can easily accept this in this world. Yeah, God is great. So it's a minimal level of even a pious person in the world can accept, yeah, God is great. So their knowledge can lead to some faith. But what Prabhupada is asking is a complete trust, that, or a complete a conviction that except Krishna's mercy, nothing else can actually protect me in this world. That is also humility. And to accept that, yeah, God is great and I am small, that is also humility. But it's a higher level of humility to understand that, yeah, I am small, but still we all have this defending tendency. We are small, but we still act like we are very big subconsciously. We know God, Krishna is there and Krishna's mercy, and still we may act as if we are independent. So it's not that Prabhupada did not act to protect his projects or further his projects and service, but it is always from the place of conviction that I'm doing, ultimately it's all Krishna's mercy.
So it's like different levels of dependence.
Yeah. A practicing devotee also has dependence, but still a lot of times a practicing devotee can act with arrogance as if everything is dependent on this, on oneself, and also can take credit for whatever good happens independent of Krishna. Oh, this happened because of me.
Yeah, this taking credit is an interesting aspect also, right? Because it's coming after the action is completed. And
yes, and so the humility part is weak. That's why the taking credit is very a strong tendency.
Okay, thank you, bro.
This is the 17th verse, which just set the tone of the mood of prayers, showing the level of trust that Kunti has in Krishna, the helplessness, the surrender. And here we see her prayers begin. And in the first three verses, she goes through this theme, that why is it difficult for people to understand the Supreme Lord? And especially you can understand when she is offering the prayers, the Lord is standing before her. The Lord is here in this world and people can actually see him. And that's why she is exploring this theme, that why is it difficult for ordinary persons to understand the Supreme? And the reason that the Acharyas give why she's picking up this theme of Aishwarya is she has just come in touch with the greatness of Krishna, because she experienced Krishna. Krishna was outside and protected all the viewers, and he also protected Parikshit in the womb of. So they have just experienced something very extraordinary, not completely understandable, but they can also understand that it is extraordinary. So that is why she is overwhelmed, and the understanding of God's greatness is completely in the forefront of her consciousness. Otherwise, she is always in the mood of parental love for Krishna as an aunt. And Krishna always begged for her. Like Krishna always acted very respectfully towards her, offering her obeisances, asking for her blessings. And she always acted, this is my brother's son. This is my son's friend. So that part of the consciousness was very prevalent all the time in her heart. This is my brother's son. He's my nephew. However, here she is very much aware of Krishna's greatness. And throughout her prayers, that she shows a deep understanding of Krishna's philosophical nature of the absolute truth, and that how Krishna is the absolute truth. Here, this is work translation. I offer my obeisances unto you because you are the original personality and are unaffected by the qualities of the material world. You are existing both within and without everything, yet you are invisible to all. It was a longer purport. So I only put one line which matched the theme that we were discussing. Prabhupada in one place says, Lord, he of course writes so something. The Lord is a puzzle for the common man. So I just took that part because we are going to actually read through the whole purport and discuss it. And I'm just surprised. I thought at when I prepared, I'm thinking, oh, only I'm going to cover 4 verses. It's so less. And now it's already 9:40 and we have only covered 1 verse. So hopefully we'll cover all the other verses. So Krishna normally addressed Queen Kunti as a senior, his aunt. And that is why Krishna is very surprised that all of a sudden Kunti Devi begins to offer him respectful obeisances. I offer my obeisances unto you, my Lord. So that's not the usual case. She was not speaking like that to Krishna. So Krishna is like kind of, oh my God, like the etiquette has suddenly changed. The mood has changed. Someone who was treating to you like family and nephew suddenly is like offering obeisances and speaking in a very reverential way. So the etiquette has changed. So it's kind of weird. So just imagine if, say, for example, your father or your mother or your someone elder to you starts speaking to you in a more reverential way, falls at your feet and begs for your mercy. It just can be little jarring. And that's why Krishna is like, no, like suddenly he's like kind of taken aback. But Kunti has emerged. So she is like remind of the tattva reality that you are the Lord and I am a tiny soul in need of your protection. And so that's why Vishwanath Chakravarti says Krishna felt extremely uneasy. So we are going to take our time to unpack each of those words. Prabhupada has also explained all those words in his purport. If you have a opportunity to look at his purport, he has gone also through the words, each word, though he has not explicitly stated. If you track it, it's all very flowing according to the words in her prayers. In Mathura also, when Devaki and Vasudev finally met Krishna after Kamsa was killed, they started offering prayers in a very referential way. Oh, you're the Supreme Lord, you're great, and all that. And Krishna was like, okay, I'm meeting you after such a long time, so I don't know what is with this mood of reverence. So he immediately starts asking forgiveness from them. Please forgive me, my father and mother, I'm your son. All this time I have failed to fulfill my duties as your son. So please forgive me. So he immediately switches their mood by offering those prayers. So now here also he is seeing that he's surprised that Kunti is offering respectful obeisances. So that's why he is asking, like, why are you suddenly bowing down to me? Why is this sudden show of respect? And Queen Kunti unpacks through her prayer answer to that question. Why is she offering obeisances to Krishna? She says, I bow to you because you are the Purusha. Namasya Purusham. Purusha can mean two meanings, the supreme enjoyer and also a man. So Krishna takes, according to Vishnu, Krishna takes the latter meaning, which is man. Says, oh, I agree, I'm a man, I'm a Purusha, but that is not a reason that you have to bow to me. And that's when Kunti Maharani says, no, you're not just an ordinary Purusha. So you are Adi Purusha. You're not an ordinary Purusha. So then Krishna is like, all right, I am the original, but we are all original, right? Like the soul, there is no birth or death. So it's not that Krishna is original and the soul is later it was born. No, the soul is also eternal. So we are all original. The soul was never born. It is original. So it does not make sense in understanding that you are bowing down to me because I am original. And that is when Krishna, Kunti Maharani persists. No, you are not just original Purusha. In that sense, if you consider all the souls are also original, but you are Ishvara among all of them. You are also Ishvara. Then Krishna might say, oh, Brahma is also Ishvara. Indra is also Ishvara. Lord Shiva is also Ishvara. Forget about that. Even the kings of this world, they are also Ishvara. And yeah, I'm also a king. I'm also a Ishvara. I'm also a prince. But you don't have to bow to me because of that. I'm just an Ishvara. I'm just one of the many rulers in this world. And that's when Kunti Maharani is saying, you are not an ordinary Ishvara. First, she said, you are not an ordinary Purusha. Now she is saying, you are not an ordinary Ishvara because you are the Ishvara who's beyond material nature. Ishvara. So, all these Brahma, Indra, and all the other kings that you mentioned, they are all Ishwaras, but they are not Ishwaras beyond the Prakriti. They are not beyond the material nature. Excuse me. So Krishna is like surprised. Okay, do you mean to say that I am Paramatma, that the Purusha who's located in the heart of all living beings? And that's when Kunti Maharani is saying, you're not just Paramatma. So that's why she uses the word Alaksh, because even the Paramatma in certain ways is perceivable. Like we all perceive that Paramatma sometimes as the voice of conscience, that voice in the heart. In meditation, the yogis perceive that Paramatma through meditation in their hearts. So therefore, he is also recognizable. Paramatma is also not, and that's why Kunti is saying, no, you're not just Paramatma because you are unrecognizable. Even Paramatma is recognizable for an advanced person with the Krishna. So that person also can see the presence of the super soul in each one's heart. So that's why she's saying, no, you are Alakshya, means even you are completely unrecognizable. So Krishna is saying, oh, you mean I am the Brahman, the all-pervading impersonal Brahman that you cannot actually perceive? But how can it be? Because I am standing in front of you and you can see me. How can you call me as the impersonal Brahman? And Kunti is saying, no, no, you are not the impersonal Brahman. I'm not saying that. You are within and without. What I mean is, like, you are right in front of me. At the same time, you are inside all that exists. So you protected my sons from without, and at the same time, invisible to anyone. So you entered Uttara's womb. So she's explaining that you are Alakshyam, that means sun. So you are actually situated in every living entity, outside every living entity and inside every living entity. So in this way, Queen Kunti actually arrives at the comprehensive definition of Krishna's omnipotence, Shwarya. So Krishna explains himself in the Bhagavad Yogamaya. So in the verses Bhagavad Gita 9.4 and 5, he speaks about his inconceivable nature, Achindriya Yoga. May Yogamaya, see my greatness, see my opulence, he says. And pretty much Kurani is also speaking about that Shakti, inconceivable potency of the Supreme Lord. Because that's what poses a challenge to a normal person in understanding the Supreme Lord, because they cannot understand or accept that God is inconceivable. However, God, by definition, is an abode of conflicting qualities. He can be simultaneously unlimited and limited. He is impersonal and personal. He is localized and not. And he is the greatest and the smallest. He can be infinitely merciful, and at the same time, there is existence of evil and suffering in the world. So he can remain omnipotent and still be defeated by his friends. So he can be actually omnipotent, feared by fear, God of fear, but still be fearful of his own mother. In this way, he is an abode of logically incompatible qualities. Because what is logic? Logic has two extremes, and within that, anything you cannot go beyond those two extremes of the logic, two boundaries of the logic. And usually ordinary logic is not applicable to incomprehensible things. So that is why God is, like, Krishna is especially known only by love, and only in love we can reconcile all contradiction. In intelligence we cannot reconcile all our contradiction. Even in life, in a relationship, if you want a relationship to survive, to stand the test of time. So you have to actually love the person. And that means what? You understand the person and you understand them. Some things in this person I cannot change. And you just, out of love, you accept, you give up. Okay, this person, this aspect of this person I can never change. And you learn to put up with it. The same with God also. So people think with my intelligence, I have to fully understand God. If with my intelligence, I cannot figure out, then he cannot exist. However, even in this world, love can reconcile contradictions. So, and God is an abode of contradictions. So we cannot understand him just by intelligence. We would have to bring in the aspect of love. So in love, contradictions can be reconciled. A mom, a mother, even when a child is as a criminal, the mother won't be able to give up the love for her child. It is not possible for others to understand it. Because there is love in her heart, she can reconcile all kind of contradictions. We can see sometimes the spiritual master is extremely merciful, even if a devotee has actually acted in ways which does not actually cannot be accepted by the general society of devotees. Still, the spiritual master is willing to give actually mercy because there is love in the heart. Yes, there is a mistake here, and still I'm okay to give my mercy. For another person, it can be how is it possible? This is not just. This is not justice. And that's when Krishna also, when he deals with his devotees, he says in 9.30, that section that he says, yeah, that my devotee might have even externally committed sorrow, not by bad behavior, but a perfectly bad behavior. Sudura. There is no doubt that this is a bad behavior. It's a perfectly a bad behavior. But still he says, because he is Ananya, he is fixed in me. He does not take any other shelter other than me. So I will consider him as, I will give him my mercy, and Shipram Bhavatma, he will become a Dharmatma very quickly. It's not your problem. You don't need to judge him. He will become Ship. So because Krishna has love, he reconciles even our bad behavior. And a devotee has love in their heart, so they reconcile contradictory qualities of Krishna as being personal, being localized, or being omnipresent, or being living in the heart or living outside the heart, or being simultaneously limited and unlimited, having a form and not having a form, or being impersonal. All of these contradictions are reconciled because there is love. So without love, reconciliation is not possible, even in ordinary dealings. So that's why from a long time immemorial, intellectual people get short circuited when they have to deal with God, because for them everything is logic. They try to catch God within their logical contradictions, within a logical construct. Anything contradicts that logic, they feel, oh, it cannot exist. So God can never be captured in the net of primitive logic. So that's when these questions come. Oh, can God create a stone that he cannot lift himself? And so for some, like the Western philosophy or philosophers, academic world has been like discussing this very deeply. It's one of a prominent philosophical problem for the classically. But in India, most acharyas will ridicule this question. They won't even bother to answer it to a large extent, because they come from a place like, you don't even have an idea that God is logically contradictory and he's inconceivable, so he can be so. So when a scholar thinks, oh, I will trip all these really faithful people with this question that if he can create a stone that he cannot lift, so he fails the test of omnipotence, that he cannot lift. But if he can actually create such a stone and he ends up not being able to lift, that also contradicts. So they think, oh, with logic, I can just trip all the faithful people. However, the logic actually trips them. So the logic is limiting them from understanding God. It's not limiting God, existence of God. So logic operates with causal relationships, like cause and effect. But God is beyond all causes. He's the cause of all causes. So that is another problem, that logic cannot capture God. So that's when Queen Kunti is concluding in this verse with Ahiravas. So you are the master of everything. Indeed, you are the supreme personality, for I personally saw you raise your Sudarshan disc, and you released it, and the Sudarshan disc went between my sons and the Brahmastra, and all the incredible potency of the Brahmastra just dissolved instantly before your potency of Darshan Chakra. At the same time, you also entered into Uttara's womb and protected her fetus within her womb. So the main Brahmastra was aimed at that child. Still, you protected, but nobody could understand how you protected, how you entered her womb, how you protected. But we now understand that her child is safe. Uttara earlier felt a burning sensation in her womb because no one can understand what's happening inside the womb. So she felt a burning sensation. That's why she came running. Now it is not there. That sensation, burning sensation, is removed, and she feels in her heart that she is safe. So even though none of us could see you, you protected the child that none of us could understand or see. So because you are inside and outside of everything, so you miraculously combined all these qualities. You externally protected the Pandavas, internally you entered and quietly you protected Parikshit discreetly. So I have nothing but offer my obeisances to you because you are a puzzle for the common man. Why? Because they think, and that will be explored in one of the next verses, the categories of people, why they are not able to understand. So either they are foolish or they are arrogant. So we will just discuss that quickly. It's already 10 o'clock. Being beyond the range of limited sense perception, you are the eternally irreproachable factor covered by the curtain of deluding energy. You are invisible to the foolish observer, exactly as an actor dressed as a player is not recognized. So the words are Maya Javanika. Maya Javanika means the curtain of Maya is Channam is covering or limiting the range of perception. They cannot understand. Suja means one who is not perceived by the senses. Knowledge born of the eyes, representing all senses. Saja is like what is born through the eyes is we see. And we see means we recognize that and understand that. So that is knowledge acquired through the knowledge acquiring senses beginning with the eye. But that knowledge, Adaha, is defeated by Krishna. So that's why he is Adaha Aksha. That's why it becomes Adokshaja. And he is Avyayam, and we'll see the flow of that purport. So being beyond the range of limited sense perception, the Lord is difficult to understand. However, understanding God's inconceivable nature is the first step in understanding Him. That is the first verse we saw, verse 18, that if anyone wants to understand God, they have to understand that He is inconceivable. He is contradictory. He is an abode of contradictory qualities. So that needs some little love. And that's what qualifies one as a devotee. So Queen Kunti is taking now in this particular verse that why Krishna is incomprehensible. First, she stated that he is inconceivable. Now she is stating why he is incomprehensible for people. That you are hidden by the wheel of Maya. That's why nobody is able to understand. Oh, then Krishna may say, okay, am I covered by Maya? That you think that, are you a proponent of Mayavad philosophy? Do you really think Maya can cover the infinite Brahman? Because you are saying Maya Javanika Channam. So Maya has covered me. So that means you think that the supreme Brahman could be covered by Maya. Are you a Mayavadi? And Kunti is saying, no, you are covered only from the ignorant. That means the wheel of Maya is covering us, not covering Krishna. So, like she gives this example of Prabhupada also explains that in another place also, that how the cloud blocks out the sun from our vision. So it is our vision which is covered. It's not the sun that is covered. So similarly, the Maya is not covering Krishna. The Maya is covering us. So naturally, Krishna can say, so you are calling me incomprehensible. But the very reason that you are calling me like Akshaja, that means what? You have understood me. How can you call yourself Agya, that is ignorant, if you have already understood me? So if you are able to understand that I cannot be understood through material senses, that means you have understood me. So you are seeing me in right front of you and you are praising me and you understand that I am beyond the material energy. So why would you call yourself Agya, ignorant? So then that's when Kunti Maharani is saying, even if I'm seeing you with my own eyes, I do not see you, because one who sees the world through the prism of their mind and not through the eyes alone. We all see the world through our consciousness. We just don't see it through our own eyes. That's why in the same situation, different people experience or perceive the situation differently, because we see through the prism of our own mind and consciousness. And that's why here Prabhupada is translated more as a foolish observer, because a person who is foolish cannot recognize God, even if God appears with all his majesty before that person. We saw in the case of Duryodhan or Ashwatthama or Kamsa, Dara, Jarasandha, so many of these people, Krishna was personally present before them, but because they were ignorant and they were sinful, their ignorance and sin could not actually let them understand Krishna. It made their ignorance and sinful activities made them foolish and deprived their ability to understand Krishna. That is why, as part of our practice, then Prabhupada always emphasized on the four regulative principles, because they are not just a lifestyle moral principle. Because to the extent we are sinful, to that extent our ability to perceive God will be limited. So, on one side, we are wanting to serve Krishna. On the other side, if we are wanting to serve the senses will become covered materially and will not be able to perceive Krishna. So, without being able to perceive Krishna, we won't be able to serve Krishna. So, that's why one side we chant Hare Krishna, where we ask for service. And then the regulative principles are ways to actually purify the senses so that we can actually perceive Krishna. So that subtlety of the senses of the heart will be taken away if it is overwhelmed with sense desires. So especially sinful activities can deprive us of the ability to understand Krishna. Purva, is it okay if I just finish this flow of this verse and then take your question?
Yes.
Because I fear I won't be able to even complete what I was thinking I would today. So please note down your question, and we will surely take it. And in the past, actually, men played the role of women in dramas in the very olden days. So they would put a lot of makeup and dress, that when a person is acting on the stage, people cannot really recognize that this is not a woman, that is a man, and who's this person. It would be so difficult to realize. That is why Nato here Kuni is saying, even though we are all able to see you, na Lakshana, because we are foolish, we cannot actually see you. Na, because just it does not take just eyes, it takes consciousness. And because we don't have that spiritual consciousness, the general mass of people does not have the spiritual consciousness, they cannot actually see you. That's why you are beyond the senses. Even though their eyes are seeing them, seeing you, you are beyond their perception, because they are muda drishti. How if you look at a actor on the stage dressed as a woman, you won't understand who's that person exactly, because they have done so much makeup that they have become completely unrecognizable. So this is one understanding of Natoyata. And Vishwataku takes the other understanding of Natona. If you have ever seen dances like traditional dances like Bharatanatyam, even Odissi and all of these dances, unless you understand the technicality of it, you don't know what they're doing. Maybe aesthetically it looks beautiful, and it can be a little bit entertaining, but it's not very famous, or it's not very for common people. Many people would get bored if they have to sit for a Bharatanatyam dance for 4 hours, because you need to know, when a person shows a hand gesture, what does that mean? What is the pastime they're trying to depict? And you should know that pastime already. And you should also understand, when they are showing certain things, what does that mean? Their hand gestures or their movements and their emotions. You need to understand, you need to know a lot in order to be able to relish that performance. Otherwise, probably you will say, oh, the dress was, color combination was good, the aesthetics was good, and some people may not be even able to appreciate that. What is this? People are like running around and jumping and moving around and not making any sense. So if you don't understand the technicality of the dance, then not only these people may actually sit there, but they won't be able to understand anything what is going on. It could be taken either way, that we sometimes, because of the makeup and everything, we cannot understand who's that actor actually. So similarly, when Krishna appears in the human form, people cannot actually exactly recognize him as that supreme, because they are seeing a very human like form. So they think, oh, Naomi Date Abra Pusha, even who's this small boy, how can this be God? So later he actually starts his prayer glorifying that small form of Krishna. The same, whatever he considered as Krishna's disqualification to be God initially and doubted his supremacy, he uses those very attributes to offer him prayer first, when he realized Krishna's greatness. Just seeing God through one's eyes is not enough. So why is he incomprehensible? So I've tried to summarize this purport because it's a longer purport. So there are the lines from the purport I have put on the other side and some understanding here. So some are foolish and less intelligent. They are not demoniac. They don't have they're not like strategic about being atheistic, and they don't make others atheistic. They're just foolish. They are not even bothered about anything like this. So it's general mass of people who are less intelligent and foolish. They lack spiritual discrimination and confuse God with ordinary beings, but they're not very inimical towards God. Less intelligent persons mistake him to be an ordinary man like us and thus deride him. So such persons are known as asuras. The Lord, they do not recognize the Lord's authority. So it also then when it becomes like a very serious thing, they go around making philosophy and influencing others, then that is more asuric. And there are other people who try to understand the Lord through imperfect senses and material logic. That's where he becomes adokshaja to them. Scientists, empress. So any thinkers who think through logic. So it is not possible to know the Supreme Person. I'm reading from the purport. It is not possible to know the Supreme Person by imperfect experiential knowledge. He is described herein as adokshaja, or beyond the range of experimental knowledge. So these are second kind of people. And the third kind of people are proud and rebellious. They both are included within the asuric nature, but one is more less harmful, the other one is more rebellious. Envy or reject divine authority due to pride, stubbornness, or past misdeeds. And Prabhupada writes, and yet there is a class of men with a demoniac mentality who are always reluctant to accept the Lord as the supreme absolute truth. This is partially due to their poor fund of knowledge and partially due to their stubborn obstinacy. So that's why I put them into two different categories. One is foolish, but the other one is really stubborn and obstinate, which results from various misdeeds in the past and present. Because that's why there are two categories. One is ignorance and the other one is sinful activities. They both foolishness and stop us from understanding the Supreme Lord. Ignorance and sinful activities. So that's why the whole understanding in bhakti is we try to inform ourselves spiritually and also protect ourselves from sinful activities. In that way, we can actually understand gradually the nature of the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, the Supreme Lord's inconceivable nature will be incomprehensible. So this leads us to the next verse. Mahi says it's 10:15. I'm extremely sorry for going over time. We'll take another 10 minutes. At least we'll complete this section of the first three verses. You yourself descend to propagate the transcendental science of devotional service unto the hearts of the advanced transcendentalists and mental speculators who are purified by being able to discriminate between matter and spirit. How then can we women know you perfectly? So I only have 15 minutes, and Prabhupada will drop me in hot waters here. Even the greatest philosophical speculators cannot have access to the region of the Lord. It is said in the Upanishads that the supreme truth, the absolute personality of Godhead, is beyond the range of the thinking power of the greatest philosopher. And he is unknowable by great learning or by the greatest brain. He is knowable only by one who has his mercy. Others may go on thinking about him for years together, yet he is unknowable. This very fact is corroborated by the queen, who's playing the part of an innocent woman. Women in general are unable to speculate like philosophers, but they are blessed by the Lord because they believe at once in the superiority and almightiness of the Lord, and thus they offer obeisances without reservation. The Lord is so kind that he does not show special favor only to one who is a great philosopher. He knows the sincerity of purpose. For this reason only, women generally assemble in great number in any sort of religious function. In every country and in every sect of religion, it appears that the women are more interested than the men. The simplicity of acceptance of the Lord's authority is more effective than showy, insincere religious fervor. So, in the previous verse, she was saying that how you are a magnificent actor, Krishna, that you are such an actor that you play your part so brilliantly and you are so perfect that hardly any of us could appreciate your performance. So because we are so ignorant and incapable of understanding you, we sometimes completely miss the point that you are the Supreme Lord. And Krishna is saying, okay, that means you understand me. You are saying you are not able to understand me. That means you are understanding me. So it's like a contradiction. One who says that he understands God, it's said he does not really understand. One who says that he does not understand God, he really is understanding the nature of the supreme absolute truth. So it's very contradictory. So then that's when Krishna is saying, oh, is it so difficult to understand? I just wanted to protect all of you, and then I'm here before you. So why is it so difficult to understand you? What do you mean by it's very difficult to understand? You are explaining all these complex points. That means you are able to understand. And then, how can a woman like me, Tatam Pashyemas Mahi, women like me can understand? Only great people, Paramahamsas, Munis, and Amalas, they only can understand you. Of course, again, there is a lot. Who's a Paramahamsa? Who's a Muni? Who's a Amala? In general, it means that people who are sincere, who are like devotees, because there is also a description of the word Paramahamsa, Prabhupada writes in another place. So, out of time, I think we won't get into everything. If you see the flow of the verse, in verse 18, she spoke about Krishna's inconceivable nature. And in verse 19, she spoke about why Krishna is incomprehensible. Because we are Agya, Muda, and we are Krishna is Ado. Because either people try to understand God, Krishna through their through their intelligence. So because, or they are just empresses, or they are proud and rebellious. Because with these three attitude, when they try to understand Krishna, then Maya covers them, and that's why they cannot actually understand. And the majority of people fall into one of these categories. That's why most people cannot understand God's greatness. And then Krishna may say, oh, you are saying all this, that means you have understood. She's saying, no, 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 I'm just a poor, less intelligent person. I'm just a woman. How can I actually understand? It's only great Parama, the great personalities can actually understand you. Only an Amalam, one who's actually pure, can understand you. I won't be able to understand you. It's not possible for me. And here Prabhupada is writing that, yes, Parama, like when you word Parama means ultimate and Hamsa means one, Prabhupada says in one place that Paramahamsa means, Paramahamsa is that which can actually separate water from milk when the milk is mixed with water. The swan will take the milk and leave aside the water. Similarly, there are two kinds of natures. There is inferior nature and superior nature in this world, that is matter and spirit. A devotee who can accept the spiritual nature of this world and reject the matter, he is a Paramahamsa. So this Prabhupada writes in Teachings of Queen Kunti. Only such people who can actually differentiate between matter and spirit. Muninas, one who are thinkers. Amalatmana, one whose heart is actually pure. So all of these three things you think, you try to see, it all reflects the purity of heart. So only one who's pure at heart can actually understand Krishna. That's what she's trying to say. So first she said Krishna is inconceivable, no one can understand. And why people cannot understand? Because they are covered by ignorance and sins. Here she is saying only ones whose heart is pure can understand actually Krishna. Bhakti Yoga Vidhanartham. And one who can actually take up to the process of bhakti, one whose heart is actually pure, one who is humble, one who is faithful, one who is grateful. They only through the process of bhakti can actually understand. How can a woman like me can understand? She is just being humble about it. And so basically, without purity of heart, one cannot understand. That's why Prabhupada also writes here it is, he is knowable only by one who has his mercy. So one who is pure at heart receives the mercy of Krishna. And Prabhupada also in another place, right, in the same purport, he writes, Krishna knows the sincerity of purpose. So it's the sincerity of purpose which reveals Krishna. And Queen Kunti is also saying that Bhakti Yoga can be learned by those who have no other desires and who are completely focused on Krishna. Bhakti Yoga Vidhanartham. So in this way, that she is covering all these things, that basically in this world we are all weak. And that's what is being represented by the word striya here, that anybody who's having this propensity, because we are all ultimately prakriti. We may have bodies of men and women, but the nature of prakriti is that it is to be enjoyed. However, when the prakriti develops this attitude of an enjoyer, then it becomes actually weak, and that gets covered by the material energy. So here she is representing that how can actually weak living beings like prakriti, which is attached to material enjoyment, can actually try to understand Krishna. It's not possible. Anyone who is attached to material enjoyment, whose heart is not pure, who's not Paramahamsa, Muni, or Amalatmana, whose heart is not pure, won't be able to actually understand Krishna fully. So the idea is, if you want to understand Krishna, then you have to cleanse your heart. So then that's why Shri Prabhu is saying that by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, your mind will be purified. And on the side, then we also practice the four regulative principles. So with this combination, the more we become pure, the more we will be able to actually not just intellectually understand Krishna, but experience Krishna in our heart and have emotions for him, like how Maharani is having. So in these three verses, Queen Kunti has listed various reasons for one. What is the reasons that difficulty for ordinary persons to understand the Supreme Lord? That the Supreme Lord cannot be understood by the material mind. He is unattainable by the material senses, and ignorance obscures our ability to understand Krishna, and our consequence of sinful activities also make us foolish and blur our vision of Krishna. And attachment to material enjoyment in the heart contaminates it, and with that contaminated heart, we won't be able to understand Krishna. So that is the purport of these three verses, that to the extent our heart is contaminated by material enjoyment, we cannot understand Krishna. To the extent we are ignorant and addicted to sinful activities, we'll become foolish. In this state of consciousness, through that contaminated mind and senses, we won't be able to realize Krishna. So we need purified mind and purified senses in order to understand that pure Lord. For that, the heart needs to be pure. So that is the flow of these three verses that Queen Kunti is praying. So from this perspective, if you look at these verses, you can go back and just think more about these verses. In the first verse, she is speaking about the inconceivable nature of God and why he is incomprehensible in the second verse. And the third verse, she is saying the reasons who can actually perceive Krishna. So in this way, she is trying to give us this understanding that why is it difficult for ordinary persons to understand Krishna? Because their heart is not clean. To the extent one's heart is clean, to that extent one can understand Krishna. So Krishna is revealed in the pure heart. There is a verse, Maji pray, yoga means you are revealed in the heart, in the lotus of the heart, which is purified by bhakti yoga. So I think I've spoken a lot, and I'm extremely sorry if it was not coherent. I was always struggling to convey, and thank you. And we'll continue. We'll be a little bit more fast in covering the remaining verses because we have 26 prayers. We have only covered 4 verses. So we have 21 more verse, 22, 21, 22 verse remaining. So this won't be the case with other verses. Probably we'll go a little bit faster. These initial verses are more philosophical. So thank you for that.
Should we save our
for my
question?
inability to convey it properly. So I tried my best. So we are here. I can take some questions.
Oh, okay. I can ask now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, this is a little bit obvious question. I just want to make crystal clear the logical flow between having a purified mind, senses, and being able to understand Krishna. So the way I would connect them, right, is that if you don't have a pure mind, if you have a mind filled with desires for lust, even though you are trying to be a devotee, but if you have a lot of material desires, to the extent that you have material desires, right, is the extent to which you will not be able to perform devotional service. And it's Krishna's reciprocation with our devotional service that allows us to understand him. So am I getting that connection proper? Or how would you make that connection between having an impure heart and not being able to understand Krishna?
What you're saying is right. How I would put it is, Krishna is revealed by his mercy. And why would he reveal himself if we are not eager to know him? And what is the degree of our eagerness is how exclusive that desire is. If someone wants to say, for example, take a particular course, but if they also want to probably do something else and do something else, if they have 4 or 5 desires, and if they come to us, we will try them, choose one. We will tell them, choose one. You cannot study like 4 degrees at the same time. You would have to choose one of it. Yeah, you may like law, you may also like arts, you may also be talented in music, but you would have to take one path. So we would say, choose one thing and focus on that. So similarly, if we have multiple desires in the heart, we also want to enjoy, we also want to serve, we also want to understand Krishna, then to that extent, Krishna will reveal. To that degree of that eagerness, to that degree, Krishna will reveal. And when we come under the mercy, that's when then the Guru actually gives more knowledge. That even though we may not be eager, still the Guru tries to give more knowledge because they are more merciful. Krishna only reveals to the extent we are eager, but the devotee steps in between and reveals more and engages in the process of sadhana so that we become more and more purified and Krishna can reveal more and more himself to us. So how I see is, when the heart is in all directions, then Krishna is like, okay, you don't want me so much, so I'm not going to expose myself. If you don't want me, why would I come to you?
Yeah, the only complication I see here is that sometimes a conditioned, struggling sadhaka does want to.
Yes.
Yeah, but because of his deep conditioning, don't like that. That's getting in the
and
way.
Krishna does not disqualify that person. You probably you attend Prabhu's like Balram Prabhu's sessions, and I'm pretty sure you have heard this verse that speaks about the qualification. That verse, that famous verse, Prabhu always quotes. I haven't memorized that verse. That he speaks about that. That what is Nirvin? That particular verse. That I'm pretty sure.
I'm not reading the Sanskrit.
Okay. But just a minute, give me a minute. I can look up that verse. It's a very good verse. So Krishna states that, like, the qualities of one ready to take the path of bhakti. He says, having awakened faith in the narrations of my glories, being disgusted with all material activities, knowing that all sense gratification leads to misery, but still being unable to renounce all sense enjoyment, my devotee should remain happy and worship me with great faith and conviction. Even though he is sometimes engaged in sense enjoyment, my devotee knows that all sense gratification leads to a miserable result, and he sincerely repents such activities.
That's 10:14:8, right?
This is 11:20, 27 to 28 Bhagavatam.
Oh, yeah.
11:20, 27 and 28.
Yes.
Okay. So to enter the kingdom of God, purity of heart is needed, which only bhakti can bestow. However, there can be remnants of material desires, and that's not a disqualification, because a doctor won't say, I won't treat sick people. Anyone who comes to a doctor will be sick. However, they should be willing to take up to the process that doctor is prescribing. If he says, you're not even a doctor, I won't even care for your prescription, then the doctor will say, okay, go mind your business. So Krishna is ready to help, but we would also need to take the process, sadhana. So that is the further from the Kunti Maharani is going to pray. Okay, then how do we develop this purity of heart? From the next verse. For that, we need to take up sadhana. So without that, we won't be able to eventually completely become pure. So we have some purity. But with that purity, we have to so we have to awaken our faith in Krishna's glories and Krishna Katha. And to that extent, gradually it will become easy. I'm not sure if I answered your question. Thank you.
I mean, I know we have to take up sadhana. I'm just saying that our conditioning, our vasanas, they are so interfering with that inertia, that.
Yes. So that is where determination comes into picture.
And of course, determination comes from Sangha.
So then what we lack, we get from outside, but we cannot be eternally like surviving on borrowed energy. They also, because of their association, inbuilds, like uncovers our original ability also. So that way we don't become independent of their mercy. We are always dependent on the mercy of great souls, but we also start realizing it personally.
Okay, Prabhu. Yeah, I was looking for a little more hope, but I'll go on to my next question. Yeah, when referring to Kunti Maharani's prayers there, and Krishna tells her, obviously, for you to be speaking like this, you do understand me. And so what this means is that we can see that she understands him. Why? Because she realizes his inconceivable nature. Is that what is the proof of her understanding him, or what?
A proof of her understanding is, of course, her love in that sense. But the proof is also her understanding of the inconceivable nature of the Lord. That's true.
Yeah, because I wasn't really getting what Krishna was thinking about when he said, obviously you do understand me,
Yeah, because you are saying that that I could not be understand, I'm beyond the material nature. So when you know that I'm beyond material nature, that means you know me.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. What are the things that she was saying that shows that she actually knows him?
Yeah, mainly Alaksha, basically that he is inconceivable and beyond the material nature.
Okay. But I think I just have one more thing. Yeah, so we were saying that love reconciles
Contradictions.
Contradictions and basically bad behavior too, no?
Bad behavior, yeah, it's a very
Because
controversial thing. Yeah, I cannot get away with it. I did tell that, so I cannot now retract.
well,
Because
the way I interpret that is that if when you truly love somebody, then even though they are exhibiting bad behavior, that bad behavior will not inspire you to reject that person.
yeah,
So in that way, love reconciles bad behavior. I would say no, like that.
I would say instead of, it does not tolerate or it does not reconcile. Basically, love forgives, I would say.
Love forgives.
Because when you put it like it tolerates bad behavior, it feels like very irresponsible or perpetuating bad behavior. So it does.
No, not tolerates like that.
Yeah,
because
that's
love,
what I'm worried about.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, love, I think it recognizes bad behavior.
Yes.
But it doesn't say, okay, I want nothing.
It does not supports it.
Mhm.
But it does not, like they say, right, hate the sin, not the sinner. That kind of a thing I'm saying.
Yeah, so it recognizes the bad behavior, but it doesn't reject the person because of that bad behavior.
Yes, because there is love.
Because, okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. You make me introspect what I speak.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah,
My question is on the similar lines. So, when you said that the foolish people do not get to know him because of their ignorance and arrogance, they would probably never reach the stage of even uttering his name, let alone become a devotee. They don't want to know him, so Krishna won't reveal himself. So he remains hidden. It doesn't this all seem like a paradox, because these are the people that probably are in dire need of knowing him, and yet they would never get to know him.
So that is why Krishna sends his devotees. It is the duty of a devotee to devise ways. And that's why Krishna takes many appearances and creates all of these spiritual sadhana and all of those things. But he knows people will not take up to it. That's why he sends devotees who can create fortune. When somebody asked Prabhupada, what is our fortune that we have got you? Prabhupada said, I created your fortune. So if someone like Prabhupada had to actually extend, sacrifice, come, and then it actually creates the fortune of other devotees. Yes, people who, if they are foolish, if they are stubborn, they can never realize God. And that is why devotees step in between and make sure, makes as many people possible, they try to actually save. That's why Rupa Goswami says, that a devotee needs to learn to behave, especially one who wants to preach. First, they should learn to behave with others properly. They need to know who is innocent, who is arrogant, who is envious, who is faithful, who is being envious of Krishna. They need to understand and act accordingly, so that their behavior does not antagonize people. So if somebody hates God, and then Rupa Goswami is saying, give him their space. Sometimes that's also giving them their space can actually benefit them. Otherwise, they may commit more offenses. So the preacher is the one who actually steps in and bridges that gap that you are pointing out. It's the role of the devotees. That is our responsibility, to make the world more come closer to Krishna.
Okay, I get it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Was there a third category of people who don't who are like atheistic or ignorant of Krishna? There were like ones who are more innocent, ones who are like very sinful. I thought there was a third category you mentioned.
Yeah, Prabhupada also, because that was based on Prabhupada's purport, and he did not externally classify anything. So just for the sake of understanding, I classified it. But my confidence came from that verse, from in the Bhagavad Gita, that verse which says like, there are people who don't surrender to Krishna. In the 9th chapter, I believe, like which speaks about, let me just pull it up. It speaks about like, I don't know, I'm growing old, I'm forgetting all the verses. 11. Yeah, 12.
9:12.
No, just a minute. Is it 7 or 9? Yeah, 7:15. So the Prabhupada says these are 4 kinds of people. Those who are grossly foolish, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, low atheistic people who are lowest among mankind. So he classifies the categories differently. He says one who is asuric is person who actively preaches atheism and converts others to atheism. But Dushkruti is someone who's like Muda is someone who's foolish, who's absorbed in material activities and material life. He does not even worry about or think about God. And the other person is the intellectual, who thinks God has to be within this logic and that logic.
Right. And then there's the fourth one.
And here it is the fourth one, who's the lowest among mankind, one who does not surrender to God. Means he understands God is great, but he does not want to surrender because he thinks, means he's basically arrogant.
Okay, so, whereas the one who's grossly foolish, he might not even recognize.
Yeah, he's just so absorbed in life that he does not even have time to think about all of those things. So here in this screen, sorry, you can read the whole purport. I only took those sections here. So Prabhupada says, less intelligent persons sometimes mistake him to be an ordinary man like us, and they deride him. And here Prabhupada also writes, this partially due to their poor fund of knowledge and partially due to their stubborn obstinacy, which results from the various misdeeds in the past and present life. So some people try to approach the Lord through their imperfect logic and their ways to know God. Some people may confuse him as an ordinary person because they just lack spiritual discrimination. But others may be very deeply envious and they may be actively atheistic.
Yeah, those who are stubbornly obstinate. Which category was that?
It's they are the asuric that Prabhupada is saying in this purport. He says
atheistic. No.
Yeah.
It is the atheistic.
Yeah, it is the atheistic and also asuric, he says.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'm extremely grateful for your time and attention and forgive my incompetencies. And thank you, Purva. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your name kept coming today so many times in the verses.
Thank you.
Prabhu, how are you? Will we see you soon?